Hello, my name is David Peters. I'm the Student Support Officer for Humanities, Languages and Social Sciences, and I'm here to talk to you about resit exams and revision. This podcast will be split into three distinct sections. Part one will be around getting started on the revision process for your resit exams. We'll be looking at active revision techniques and strategies for remembering more information. And then we'll also look at what to do during the exam itself while you're sat there in the exam, and some tips for effective writing. Part two will be around unblocking a mental block, which is something that students can tend to suffer with during exams. They've done the revision, but pressure has meant that they can't produce the work they would like. In tandem with that, we'll look at managing your stress, which can be a big contributing factor to students not performing as well as they would like in their exams. Part three will be about organisational skills and managing your time whilst revising. You don't have to listen to all three parts. They are separate. If you want to just listen to one part, two parts, all three, it's entirely up to you. So, getting started. I think it's a good thing to start with is reflecting on your past performance. If you did take exams in the summer period, April, May, it's a good place to start by reflecting on your performance and whether you could have performed better than you actually did. So these are some specific areas that you might want to look at in terms of your performance. Did you get your timings right? Perhaps you didn't use the time effectively in the exam itself. You may have, for example, 3 questions, 3 hours, but you ran over, which meant you weren't able to finish the final question, which affected your mark possibly. So think about your timings carefully and how to use that hour or however long it is you've got for your exam. Did you address the question? Did you actually answer the question you should have done? That can be one of the major factors in people, again, not performing as well as they would like because they perhaps didn't answer the question that was actually put in front of them or veered off in a different direction. Very important to not do that. Was your writing up to a good standard? Did you write a clear introduction, body and conclusion? Was there some evidence of critical analysis? Did you attempt any form of critical analysis whatsoever? Did you attempt to bring in any sources that you've previously studied? Was there clear paragraphs, sentences? All these kind of things do count, of course, as they would in your coursework throughout the year. Under different settings, of course, you're under pressure in an exam, but the quality of the writing is still very, very important. And perhaps you need to have a look at your revision technique. Perhaps you didn't revise in the right way. Perhaps you tried to write copious notes, writing essays and essays and essays, hoping that would help you, and it might well do if that's your style. But there are other ways that we'll look at for you to revise. It's not a bad idea to also look at your performance over the year and think about the feedback you got from tutors on coursework and think, what specific areas was I being told that I need to work on? Those same areas may have cropped up in your exam. If they did, there are some support avenues open over the summer. Myself or the student support officers are around. If you don't have a particular issue, for example, with critical analysis or the quality of your writing, you can approach one of us. Or you can also look at skills online, which is in Moodle in the student resource area, and there are lots of units there to help you with your study skills. So, getting started, once you know what your exams are that you have to resit, you might be wondering, what specific topics do I need to be studying from the syllabus? Your tutors may have already given you an indication about that in the original exam period in summer, so you may be already familiar with the topics you have to study. That's good. If you're not, you can always look back on Moodle and see what particular topics you covered and how many you think you should be attempting to revise. Again, your tutors may have given you some indication on that. If you haven't and you want to contact a tutor, I would suggest you could email the tutor, absolutely, and hope you get a response. Or there are also student experience support tutors for your department who also might be able to help you with that. But try and get hold of somebody if you're unsure which topics you should be focusing on revising for your exam. We'll come to plan time for each topic later. As I said, part 3 will be managing your time, but I think it's a good idea to perhaps have a go at some past papers. This can be a very useful way of seeing what you can do in a short space of time, in an hour or however long you have. You can check the quality of your writing, you can see how much you can write, and also it's good revision to actually do a past paper. In order to access past papers, what you would need to do is go here to the Student Hub pages, mmu.ac.uk/students, as you can see. Then if you go to this faculty exam information, and then to your faculty, which is Humanities, Languages and Social Science, it takes you to this page, exam timetables page, which has got other useful information. So for example, we have the reset exam period. At some point your timetable, I think, will be available here. You can see there. Down the left hand side there are lots of other areas you can look at, such as student experience support tutors, I just mentioned them. And here, past exam papers. And you'd enter your MMU ID number, your password, and you would then have access to past papers to have an attempt at. I think it's a very, very useful way to revise, having a go at past papers. I mentioned earlier about reflecting. Again, if you have a go at a couple of, not the whole paper, but just maybe one question, another afternoon or another day, and then reflect on what you wrote and think, would this be adequate for an answer for an exam question at university? Think about the structure of your answer. Have you answered the question? The quality of your sentences, your paragraphs? Is there evidence of critical analysis, critical thinking at all? Were you able to expand on your points? Are you just making a list of facts, or are you actually expanding on those points as well? So various things you need to be thinking about, I would think, when you're reflecting on your work as a past paper question that you may have had an attempt at. Let's move on to specific active revision techniques, ways in which to revise. The first one is mind mapping, which many of you may be familiar with, and an example of it on the right hand side of the page there. I think this is an excellent way to revise and get down on paper or onto a computer what's in your head and make a plan even for an answer. As you can see, the one on the page here is colour coded, and of course if something is colour coded, if topics are particularly colour coded, that can help when it comes to remembering that information under pressure. It's another tool for helping you to recall information when you're having a mental block, for example. I think what you can see on the page there is a visual representation of an essay answer or essay piece of coursework. You have in the maroon colour, you have the central theme topic in the centre. Then you have the 4 subtopics branching off, which are colour coded green, yellow, pink and blue here, and they could be your 4 sub-strands of the actual answer. And then of each strand, there are of course the points you want to make on each one as well. And they could represent your paragraphs, for example. So I think it's a good way, instead of writing lots and lots of sentences and notes and paragraphs, this is a good way for you to get something down on paper to help you recall information, facts and figures, dates, key theories as well. So I think mind mapping is a very useful way to help you revise. Flashcards and post-it notes also very good. You can write lots of small notes on flashcards and post-it notes. Again, the beauty of those is that they're very convenient. Flashcards you carry around with you everywhere. So whether you're studying a supermarket queue or you're on a short bus journey home, wherever it might be, you can pull them out, and even 10 minutes revision is revision. It's all about the quality of the revision, not the quantity. And if you're exposed to various pieces of information a number of times in a day or a week, you're more likely to remember it, I would suggest. Post-it notes, it's the same. You could put those all over your house, on your bedroom wall, the kitchen, wherever it may be. Clearly you can't write very much on them, but the idea is not to write lots and lots of notes, it's to recall the information you need and then to build the sentences and the paragraphs as you work throughout that exam itself and the exam itself. I mentioned colours and symbols on the mind maps. Colours are certainly there. You could even use symbols. If you're somebody who likes drawing, likes animation, imagery and pictures, I guess is connected with this as well. You could draw symbols on your mind map or even on your notes, on your flashcards. Again, just as a little reminder about what that flashcard is particularly about. It could be a symbol, it could be a character of some kind. Anything that's going to help you under pressure recall what was on that mind map, what was on that flashcard, etc. Mnemonics is a tool I would say is not widely used. That's the way of learning something by taking the first letter of each word and then turning it into something else. The classic example of that would be the colours of the rainbow. Richard of York gave battle in vain. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Clearly you're not going to do all your revision that way, but if there is a particular area that you're struggling with, you're stuck on, it might work for you. Past papers, I've already mentioned how useful they are in terms of revision and your own reflective work on what you're capable of. If there is somebody studying with you, perhaps a colleague, somebody who's in your class who maybe in a different part of the country, even, if you've got Skype, you could perhaps agree to revise the same topic areas, and then at the end of the week call each other, Skype each other, meet up if you're not that far away, and discuss what you revised. Kind of learn from each other, bounce off each other, check what you revised. Revision, it's very good to verbalise what you've learned, to help you understand what it is you've learned, and find the holes in what you've learned as well, what you tried to remember. So doing that with a friend, of course, is a very good way of getting the information out there to help you recall it. The same goes for role play as well. I think it's a very good idea to for example, write some flashcards and then stand up or sit down at home somewhere and actually give a lecture on that particular topic you revised. Put yourself in the shoes of the lecturer. Today we're going to class, we're going to discuss the role of feminism in the novels of Jane Austen, for example, and then give your lecture, your imaginary lecture, using your flashcards. Again, very useful way to verbalise what it is you remember, even though it's on flashcards in front of you, and to help that information to stick when you most need it. Moving on to the exam itself, I think these are some things you have to be very careful of and very aware of when you're in the exam. Of course, you'll be nervous, there's pressure on, but you don't want to miss any of these points, because then they could affect your whole answer. So be very careful, be aware of the instructions. What is it you're being asked to do? Take a highlighter pen into the exam with you, highlight the key words of the task brief, so you're absolutely sure what it is you're being asked to do. Think about the issues it raises. You could write a small mind map there on your rough paper. You could write a plan. I would suggest don't just jump straight into the answer and start writing. Write a little plan, write what you remember. Mind map could be the best way of doing that. Think about the people you need to mention, why you need to mention them, why they're relevant, why is that person important, why is that theory important here, and then you can build some structure to your answer. What points do you need to include? Can you back up your argument? And are there any conclusions or critical comments you can make? No one's expecting you to reference your sources at this stage. That's not something the tutors really would expect from you, to be putting page numbers and dates and authors. If you can put a reference somebody, great, but no one's really expecting that from you in an unseen exam anyway, particularly. Always refer back to the question you're answering. All the points you've made, are they relevant to the question, the task I've been given here? If it's not relevant, maybe it doesn't need to be there. And if you do have time, and I think you should make time, the last 5 minutes, remember, if you have, for example, 1 hour, one question, you should always leave, I would say, 5 minutes at the end of each hour to read your answer and just go through it, check it, and make sure you're happy with it. I think this slide pretty much covers what the final one, the previous one, did as well. So yeah, it's kind of, speaks for itself. That's the end of the first part of this podcast. If you want to listen further, part 2 will be about unblocking mental blocks and managing stress.